All right, we're going to get things started here. Hello, athletes and parents, and welcome to the Junior Recruiting Webinar. My name is Jonathan Sklenar, and I'm a former college athlete and a senior recruiting specialist for ImRecruitable. Our goal today is to help you better understand the junior recruiting process and how to maximize exposure to college coaches. This will be an informative session, so please listen carefully. And if you have any questions, you can add them in the chat here for us to answer during the Q&A session. The webinar is also being recorded, so we'll be emailing it to you after the webinar. All right, at this time, I would like to introduce to you Tarek Merchant. Tarek is the founder and CEO of ImRecruitable. He spends a majority of his time leading our team of recruiting experts made up of former college coaches and athletes to assist student athletes through the college process. Tarek is a multi-sport athlete and is a certified high-performance coach who has worked with professional sports organizations such as the Orlando Magic NBA basketball team, Cliff Drysdale Tennis, and has over 15 years of experience in the college recruitment space. Through Tarek's leadership, ImRecruitable is regularly featured on TRN, ESPN, UTR, First Team Miami, and is the official recruiting partner of many federations and academies around the country and world. Since 2009, ImRecruitable has helped over 10,000 athletes in the recruiting process. We are an NCAA-approved organization and have established trusted relationships with college coaches from all college sports teams. All right, Tarek, take it away. Tarek, you want to unmute?
Sorry about that. Okay, thanks a lot, John.
Yeah, no worries.
Appreciate the intro. And tonight, guys, I want to welcome everybody to our junior recruiting class. We're going to be talking about how the importance of junior recruiting. And when I looked at the registrations that came through, we had quite a few people that registered. So I know there's a group of people here that are rising juniors. So they're sophomores now going to go into junior year. We have current juniors, and then we have some even younger people or maybe some seniors as well. So although I'm talking about the importance of the junior year, this is for everyone to take in. If you're about to start on this journey, great. You'll know what's happening. If you're already in it or you're deep, this is all going to be valuable information for you guys. So I'm going to start here with the PowerPoint presentation, and it's junior recruiting. It's go time. And when I say go time, I mean this is when everything starts to happen. So I'm going to talk about the college recruiting timeline for juniors. And this is where you really have to realize that it's game on. So during freshman and sophomore year, normally, those years are spent getting educated, getting familiar with the process, really trying to get an understanding of what recruitment is about and what college sports would be like depending on the sport that you play. And then junior year typically is when the athletes and coaches interact the most. So for most sports, June 15th onward, going into your junior year, that's when coaches can talk to you unlimited. And when they start doing that, that's when they're really serious about talking to you about your game, talking to you about your academics, figuring out if you could be a prospect for their team or not. And so that's an exciting time, but there's definitely work that needs to be done prior to that. But so much communication is going to be going on that you must be prepared. So coaches will often, also let athletes know during this time of this communication what their plans are. So as former coaches, we know how that process works. So what happens is that coaches will sit down and before they're recruiting their junior year of classes, and they'll start talking to each other in their office and saying, okay, we got some players that are going to be exiting, some seniors, maybe there's some injuries, maybe there's some kids that are leaving for whatever reason, and how many roster spots do I have available? what positions am I recruiting for? And what type of players am I trying to bring in? Academically, what do they need to fit? Like what requirements do they need? The schools have requirements. It's very important to understand that every school will have academic requirements. So it's not just, hey, I'm good at my sport. Like this kid's a 5-star or blue chip athlete. We can recruit them or whatever they're looking for. They have to meet criterias. And so they're going to write those things down and they're going to say, these are the types of players we're looking for. So they're going to be able to often let you know if they have roster spots and what their requirements are. And you're going to retain all that information and then the process can get started. The other thing you have to do during this timeline is build a profile. So you must have a profile where you can have all the information coaches need to evaluate you and decide. As I said, you're either going to be in the not interested pile, which is at this time you don't fit it, or you are a prospect for our team because you meet those requirements. That doesn't mean that if you're in the other pile that you don't meet them, that you can go over, because you can go over to that prospect list if you meet those requirements. But in order for a coach to quickly evaluate you, you want to be able to give them a profile that they can see your video, your unofficial transcripts, your contact info, what you want to major in, and everything that allows them to quickly do that. Coaches get a lot of information. They get a lot of emails. They meet a lot of people. And not every school is hoping that 10 athletes come to them. Some of them have hundreds that come to them. And so they're going to look to work with those athletes that present them the information easily for them, because unless you're a top tier athlete for that team, you're going to be a stud player for them. They're probably going to look at the ones that give them the information first. You're also going to want to make sure that you're familiar with the different divisions and levels of the game and where you could potentially play. It's really important that you have that information in hand come junior year, because you want to make sure that the time that you have, you're targeting the realistic schools. So that's what goes here with creating a list of realistic target schools. If you don't know your level and you're just shooting in the dark, then you've got a lot of work to do and you may miss opportunities. So by this time, you should know that. That's what freshman and sophomore year are for. And then interact with coaches. So as I said in the first area here in the slide, which is this is when the most interaction happens, you got to aggressively go after coaches. People often think that coaches come to them only. And the reality is that outside of football and basketball, at the top tier level, players have to seek coaches, and coaches are going to receive offers and information and resumes and profiles, whatever you want to call it. And then they're going to make choices. They don't have the resources and the time to go see the thousands of players. They're going to want to see what you guys have to offer first. And so you have to aggressively get a hold of those coaches. And coaches communicate different ways, just like we do in life. Some people are great on email. Some people are terrible. Some people are great on text. Some people don't text back, phone, filling out questionnaires, following on social media, attending exposure camps and showcases. Anywhere you can get in front of coaches is very valuable. And you got to hit them in every way possible to figure out which way they communicate. And different coaches will communicate in different channels. Once you figure out where they're best to communicate with, that's where you want to stick to it and keep talking to them. And if you're not sure, you can always ask the coach, hey coach, what's the best way for me to get a hold of you? They'll tell you. Send me an email, drop me a text, write me on Instagram, whatever it may be. So I want to now talk about the recruiting checklist. This is a fall recruiting checklist. As we're coming into the summer and going into the fall, some of you, as I said, are going into your junior year. Some of you are already in there. So, this is stuff that you should have been doing. But I want to make sure that I let everybody know right now that no matter where you are, it's never too late, but you have to recognize that you're behind and that you got to hustle and make things happen. And of course, some opportunities can be lost, but that doesn't mean it's over for you and you should give up. Plenty of opportunities out there, plenty of colleges, but by seeing what I'm talking about today, at least it'll give you the sense of urgency. And that's really what I'm looking for you to click in the head. So here in the fall recruiting checklist for juniors, we're looking at August, September. What are you doing? Okay, you want to check with your high school guidance counselor. Are you on track to graduate on time with the NCAA core courses? So online, you'll find the NCAA eligibility site, which will tell you all the core courses. Okay, you can look at that. Your guidance counselors should know that and make sure that everything is in check. If you are behind on a class, you got to make sure you redo that class or you get the grades you need to get. You want to talk to your high school coach, club coach, and potentially an ImRecruitable recruiting expert, because you should have a clear game plan for your athletic recruiting to-dos. Everybody's process is different. So what are the areas that you need to improve in? How are you doing academically and athletically? What types of schools do you want to apply to? And how do you compare to current rosters on the different teams? So all that wheels should be in motion. You should be talking to all these different people to figure out where you fit. And then the last part of this is keeping track of the important dates. So you want to stay up to date with the recruiting calendars and rules, depending on your sport, depending on the divisions. You know, recruiting can be a little complex when it comes to those things, but that's where you can do your research, figure it out, talk to people. All this information that I'm giving you here is an overview, and I want you guys to know that we have on our website at imrecruitable.com, the first tab is your recruiting guide. All detailed information is in there with links to the NCAA site, as I said, for the core course requirements, as well as recruiting calendars, rules, and all that stuff. So you can do your research and find it there and get the details. The next month here is October. So this is when you're creating a plan for your SAT, ACT tests. I know during COVID, many schools are still test optional. But now as things are been opening up, the highest level schools especially are still asking for test score requirements. And they will understand if you're in a position where you cannot do it, like you may still be in a position where you live with a grandparent or a family member who is, or you yourself could have some issues with being around others, or you don't want to risk that. That's understandable, but it is important because it can help you. So if you're in that position, it can help you. It can help you, especially with the academic scholarships. No one will penalize you, but unless you have one of those special circumstances, we need to get back onto the SAT, ACT prepping. So you also need to consider costs along with taking the tests, which is, hey, I'm probably going to need some tutoring. I'm going to do some test prep classes, and there's going to be fees associated with that as well. So let me make sure I'm not only preparing, but I've signed up for the right test and I paid the fees. And of course, I've written here that there's waivers that can be granted to people if you don't have, if you need that financial assistance. So no one can stop you from taking those tests. November, December, follow your top choice schools. So this is when you can start going on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want to use. Go on their school websites. These are great ways to stay up to date with the colleges. It gives you an insider look and an opportunity to understand what that team's about, what they're doing, who they're playing. And then that gives you a way to communicate with those players and coaches, because when you start getting on those interactive calls, you don't want it to be awkward. The whole discussion is around yourself, the team, and if you can be a good fit. The more you know about the team and who they're playing, how they're doing, how they train, what they do. So many teams are big on social. So you will get to know them and you can discuss that with the coach. You get a better feel for yourself as well. The other thing that needs to start happening is college visits. So, you know, it's either in-person or virtual campus tours. You need to start understanding what those colleges can provide you and whether it's going to be a good fit for you or not. Official and unofficial visits, doesn't matter. what type it is. It's just so important to be on a campus, to get a feel for it. I've never, in my many years of experience, I've always seen athletes judge a book by its cover or judge a school by its cover. And sometimes they guess it right, sometimes they get it completely wrong. And it's only until the visits happen do they really understand what that school is about. And often their third place school turns out to be their first place, and their first place might even be their 10th place school. So I can't emphasize how important it is. Feel very strongly towards visiting if you can. Um, Now the next thing is you got to understand how coaches recruit. You want to think like a coach and understand the basics of their recruiting workflow, which is what I'm going to get into now, which will help you tremendously. I think this is a step that most people overlook. And it's really important because this is like a business transaction. You are going to play for a team, and that coach is hired to have a successful program. And that doesn't just mean with the W's on the board, but they need players that are going to represent the school well, that are going to be ambassadors for the school for the long run. They're going to want players that also do well in the classroom. And of course, they got to perform on the field as well. So they're looking for the right type of candidates. And so if you're trying to get a job with them, because essentially that's what it is, then you got to understand how they handle the recruitment process. So they're going to generally take steps, and these are the steps they're going to take. They're going to gather a list of prospective athletes. So just like you're doing, you're casting a wide net. You're going to put a bunch of schools on your target list that you feel like could be a potential fit based on financial, academics, athletics, personal preferences. And the coaches are doing the same thing. And they're just going to have a big list. And then they're going to send out recruiting letters, questionnaires. They're going to give you camp invitations. They're going to try to get you involved, just like you're going to do the same thing as we talked earlier about sending emails, texts, and so on. This is their method of doing it. And so they're going to want you to come. Hey, can you come to a camp? Great. You get on campus, you meet them, a bunch of coaches. Maybe you do a bunch of drills, you play matches, or you're involved in gameplay, and they get a chance to evaluate you. They get a chance to see what your character is like. They're going to send you letters of interest, see if you have interest back. Then they're going to conduct evaluations. And those evaluations are initially seeing a video. Hopefully you have a profile with a video, because that's a must. And then they're going to watch you play in person if they can, or visit and ask you to come to visit the campus. So for them to evaluate you properly, they're going to want to see these things happen. And then if all things go well, they're going to extend a verbal offer and or scholarship depending on the division you play. In D3, there are no athletic scholarships, but they are going to give you a spot on the team, which in a lot of cases can be a supported spot, and it gets you in the school. So it's also really important to understand that college coaches, once they go through this process of 1, 2, 3, and let's say you're at the point where they've watched a video, they've come seen you play, or they've seen you at a camp and you've made a visit, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to extend you an offer. I see a lot of athletes feel like it's a done deal at that point. And I want everyone to, this is a piece of good advice from my experience, that you really want to be humble and understand that you have to also mesh with the team and the coach, and they're going to have to want you to be there just as much as you want to be there. It's not just a given. So hopefully that process goes well, and that's where it'll go. And if everything goes extremely well and both parties like each other, then that offers are going to come, and then they're going to sign athletes. So here it's talking about setting yourself up for success. So there's a bunch of steps that you need to take to set yourself up for success. There are also guidelines that we have on our recruiting guide, as I'm saying here, getting educated, follow recruiting guides. So there's tons of information on the internet. You just have to be careful. Some of it can be outdated. Some of it could be people's opinions. You want to differentiate between people's opinions versus facts. So there are things like the NCAA eligibility guide. You want to make sure that that is the most current one, and you want to understand the factual information to help you get educated. People's opinions, unfortunately, they might be giving you good advice, but you have to take it with a grain of salt because it's an opinion and not an exact process to follow. But you want to learn as much as you can. There's nothing wrong with learning from everybody, taking in things and trying to, because the more you know, the better it's going to be for you, the easier the process is going to be, the better decisions you're going to make. So I gave you a brief guideline, for example, on the fall recruiting checklist, but you'll have to go through the next months and so on, and you guys can do all that education at your own time. The next thing is using recruiting tools. So we live in 2022. Technology is a big part of the recruiting process. That has been my mandate for the last 10, 15 years, almost when I started. I have a tech background in the sense that I've always loved technology from when I was a kid. And I realized that as soon as YouTube evolved and all these platforms and apps and opportunities, that coaches can do a lot of recruiting from the desk. And it's important for many of the non-revenue generating sports. So that's everything outside of football and basketball. There's limited resources. That's the reality. That's a fact. After COVID, things have certainly changed. You probably saw a lot of schools and a lot of the sports outside of football and basketball that cut programs. That's not to say there aren't still majority out there, but they're cutting costs and they're using technology more because it's efficient. They can go online, see a profile, get a lot of information, then figure out the 2, 3, 4, 5 kids they can see. They rather come to a camp or a showcase and see 20 players rather than going individually to see one player at a time. It's way more efficient for them time-wise and cost-wise. So using recruiting tools, getting the data of all the college coaches, being able to hit them all up, being able to have a profile where they can see, getting exposure to the coaches by attending those events, and then getting the personal support that you may need is going to help you. That is a must in today's era. These tools you cannot really do without. The next thing is the student athlete must take control of the process, and parents support your child and provide them with the opportunities. Those are the roles. People ask me all the time, what's the role of the parent? Well, we can get into details on all the things, but your job is to support your child, make sure that they're doing the stuff. You know your child best, you know their strengths and their weaknesses. So it's really up to you to help them be successful in that regard. But if your child doesn't want it, there's not much you can do. You know, if you're constantly pushing them to do it, then there's an issue there, and they're probably going to stop at some point. And if I'm speaking now to the student athletes, you know, it's nobody else's process but yours, and it doesn't matter who's helping you or what type of help you're getting or what type of support you have. You really have to realize that you're the one that's going to make it happen. So it's the same concept as when you're getting coached and you're playing your sport. So your coaches coach you in practice. You go to practice, you listen to them, and you try to put that into play. But when you're out on the field, it's all on you. And it's because you want to be there. You're going to take everything that they taught you and try to make it happen. And I can't emphasize that enough. That's why I wrote must, because the ones that do are the ones that have success. Another point here is getting a third-party assessment to understand your academic, athletic, and financial opportunities. So those are the 3 main components of recruiting right there. You know, your coaches, phenomenal. They're going to help you. They're going to work with you. They can give you advice. Your parents, great. Friends, great. But what happens is that you need an unbiased view from the outside as well. It's good to listen to, because that person doesn't know you, and they're going to give you a realistic understanding of where you're at. on those three elements right there. And that will help you a lot throughout your process to decide on the right schools and figure out where you would fit, so you're not chasing after schools that may never follow through. Because in the end, you could be chasing those, but you come back and there's no school that's available for you to play at, then you've wasted way too much time. And then here, you want to decide how you want to handle the process. And this, I think, is a family discussion, and parents play a big role in this part. Is how do you guys want to do the process? Well, there's many ways to go about everything. You know, we're us here at ImRecruitable and the people that are on my team, our goal is to help you guys. If we can help you in some way, great. If there's certain things you can do on your own, we're going to advise you to do that. We're just going to look to help you be successful, because our reason for doing what we do is because we had a great student athlete experience, and now we're basically coaches and teachers, and we want to give back. And that's first and foremost. If you guys have success, then we have success. So most people won't tell you the information I'll give you, but there's 3 ways to do it. It's that simple, A, B, C. You can do it yourself, use the tools and the guides, and you do it yourself. Maybe you have a brother or sister that's been through the process, maybe a parent that is a college coach or former college coach. Great. It can be very simplified for you, and you can do it and you can make it happen. If you're a very organized person, if you're somebody who has the skill set, understands and can go after it, great. The second type of person is to get some kind of help. You know, you have lots of resources around you. You have high school coaches, club coaches, you have friends, you may have a recruiting expert that works with you. You have options to get a little bit of help when you need it, and then you're managing most of it on your own. And then the third option is just having an expert coach coach you through the entire process. I don't know anything about it. My parents are super busy. They got jobs at work. You know, maybe it's a doctor and he works in the ER, your dad or mom, and, you know, or someone travels a lot and we don't know what to do. There's nothing wrong with any of the 3 ways. You just need to pick one, because if you don't pick one, then you kind of get stuck in the middle and then you don't know what to do. And it's also okay to start one spot and then realize and recognize that down the line, okay, you know what, this is getting too difficult, or I don't know what to do, and we don't have the resources anymore, and now we need some more help. So just picking something, making sure you can be successful by doing that. And the most important part of all of that, and this slide, is no 2 athletes process is the same. So often you're listening to friends and you're watching. I know now with social media and all the ranking and rating sites and everything we have out there, you're constantly seeing players that are committing, what they're doing, their stories. As I said, retain that information. Take it with a grain of salt, because at the same time, you need to have your own game plan. You need to know what you're going to do, and your process is going to be different than someone else's. Could be similar, but everyone's going to be a little bit different. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to walk you through a couple of areas where you can look at the tools and understand a little bit how you can help yourself get educated. So I'm just going to stop presenting here and restart it. Just give me a moment. All right. Hopefully you guys can see this now. Yeah. Okay. So as I mentioned to you, here on our website, we have a recruiting guide. And so when you're on ImRecruitable, you just click the recruiting guide, and you can go through all these sections on how to get started, how recruiting really works, finding best fits. We have all these headings, and inside of here is a ton of information. There's great information here. We got some videos as well for you, and you can read through this and really start getting educated and understanding the different divisions, the different levels of the game, all the things that we were talking about. Okay, so this is important. There's resources here as well, scholarship information. So this is great. Now, it doesn't mean that this is the only place you can go. I also recommend you Googling and searching some stuff. Like I said, just make sure that it is reputable organizations and that they have updated information for you. The next thing I want to show you is our profiling system that we asked everybody who doesn't have a profile to create. And those of you that have a profile, just follow along with me because I could probably give you some additional tips. So here, when you sign up for ImRecruitable and you go through our onboarding process, you come here to our profiling page. And here's a summary, and I'm just got a sample athlete here. And you have steps that you can follow. This athlete has completed 95% of his profile. He has one step left to do, but this will give you a way to complete your profile quickly and easily. But as you go along these steps, here's where you can upload videos. Here's where you can put in key stats. I'm logged in as a men's tennis player just because I had this as an example. But depending on your sport, no matter what sport you play, you're going to get stats and information that you can upload based on your sport. It's important to put in high school, club, team schedules if that's what you have. It's very important to put in coach references, and you can put in honors and additional information here about your highlights of what you've achieved in your sport. On the academic side, you put in your high school information, your grades. Here's where the transcript upload is very important. Unofficial transcripts, SAT or ACT scores. Coaches need this information. So as you see here, this athlete is putting in his information from grade 9 to current. So wherever you're at in the process, keep uploading every semester your transcripts. And then you can go ahead and fill this stuff out when you've got it. You can put in your major, another very important step for college coaches to see. If the school doesn't offer your major, well, it's not going to be a fit because your major is going to be most important. If you're undecided like this athlete, you're undecided, and that's fine. When you do the NCAA eligibility ID, you're going to want to put your number there because that number is required for the school to continue recruiting you. If they see you as a prospect, they've got to walk that down and register you with the compliance department and put you on their list of prospects. And if you're going NAIA, the same thing. And then your contact information. Probably the most important piece of everything, because if they don't know how to contact you, they won't be able to. So all this spits out and shoots a great profile here for you and that coaches can see. They have a special profile view and they'll be able to click certain buttons and interact with you. Okay. I'm going to show you the next phase here, which is finding colleges. So this is the tools you can use to start doing your research and understanding where you fit. You can filter by all these different things: location, division. So if I select here, I can select Division I schools. This is all going to be sport specific to your sport that you're playing, and it'll give you the list of schools that offer your sport. So I can filter by as many filters as I want to narrow my search down. I can favorite my schools, I can email my schools, and I can click on these schools. So if I click on one of these schools, I can get a ton of information about where they're located, their school's website. I can get an overview here of how many students participate, where it's located, similar colleges that I might be interested in. I can go to the recruiting tab. I can see the coach's information. I can see cost and financials, admissions, etc. And then we have a really nice feature here where you can go through your progress. So you can lift up these cards and you can see, okay, I've researched, decided, yes, this is an interesting school to me. What do I have to do next? What's my status with this school? And so on. So it's a way for you to manage as well your process so that you stay organized. And then if you go to the favorites here, all the schools you favorited, you can get an idea of where you fit with these schools. Okay, these are 13 potential schools. I got 51 reach schools that I'm trying to get at. Here's 5 matches. Currently don't have any safety schools or bad fits, and you can manage and filter it out here. Okay. And then the most exciting part is the coach activity, because You want to see how many coaches are viewing your profile, following you, how many people are searching for players like you. So again, I'm here in this player's account, and he has a new profile, and he's already got 7 views, 7 followers, 1,120 searches. Excuse me. And these searches are looking for players like you, and you can start interacting with these coaches. So just give me one moment, guys. So the next part is, well, how do I get started with the profile? What can I do here? So I want to walk you through what we do at ImRecruitable that is unique. First of all, excuse me. First of all, we're uniquely positioned because we've designed it like a LinkedIn for student athletes and coaches. So whether you're looking for additional help or not, we have these data and tools for you that you're going to need. So we want to make sure that you're positioned correctly to have a good profile that can go out to coaches. You can do all your research, all this stuff, and get all the data that you need. So, most of the recruiting companies that people look at, they make the decision, okay, do I need this person or not? Well, in our case, we have tens of thousands of athletes and over 35,000 college coaches that are using ImRecruitable every day because it is that LinkedIn, because it is giving them the information that they want, helps them interact. So that's the first part of it. The second part is that if you do need more help, we can help you. We have our team of former college coaches and athletes that work with athletes every day and help them through the recruiting process, have years and years of experience. So there is a fit for everyone. So that's a little bit of the uniqueness. And so our process and steps is here is we give you education first and foremost. That's important to us. So after you build an online profile, we'll give you a scout call where we're just going to verify information and talk to you about your recruiting assessment. So you can go ahead and click inside the application here. Instead of this, this is an athlete that's already signed up, but you would have a button here that says book assessment. And you can book that based on what fits your calendar. That assessment call here, it will go over how to best activate your recruiting efforts, how to get exposure to coaches, initiate a list of target schools, and we'll figure out where you fit and give you best recommendations. And that is a family process. Everybody in the entire family has to be on that call to make those proper decisions and to get the information that you need. It's such a valuable call that is free of charge, and you're going to be talking to a recruiting specialist, an expert who really knows what they're doing. So they're going to be able to evaluate you and help you out. So I really recommend you guys take this step. You can do that right away. You can do that tonight. You can book it in advance, and this will be not only give you the information, but there's another part here which will activate you into our network. So as long as you qualify, we're going to make sure that you're somebody that can play your sport in college. But when you do, you're going to get this verified stamp of approval right here. And that tells college coaches that we have verified you and that you are a serious athlete, which is important because when there's tens and thousands of athletes out there that are looking to play their sport in college, coaches want to go to trusted resources and they want to see that verified stamp of approval so they know that this information is accurate because we verified it. And as John said earlier, because we are an NCAA approved organization, we are one of those trusted resources on their list that they know that these athletes are legit. And then you get into this last step, as I said, activation, and then searching. You're able to be searched by all the college coaches, and you're able to maximize your recruiting efforts. So these are the steps that you can take. That's very, very important. And I would like everybody to do that so that you get the most out of this. All right, I'm just gonna stop sharing the screen here for a second. And I think it's time now we can get into the Q&A session portion here for the last 10 minutes or so. I do have some questions here that people have already sent in advance, and I'm just going to look in the chat and see if there's any questions here. I don't see any yet, but if you guys can open up the chat window, you can see two things. One thing you're going to see, first of all, is John is actually provided with a direct link as well for the assessment call if you want to click that and save it. Otherwise, like I said, you can go inside your profile and you can book the assessment. So that's there. But as far as the questions go, if you have anything while I start answering the first couple, just throw them in the chat and I'm happy to answer them. So I'm going to go over here to my notes. Okay, here we are. Okay, so one question here is, how many college coaches should we be in contact with during junior year? Okay, so there is not an exact number of colleges and coaches that you should put on your target list. It really depends on where you fit academically, athletically, and financially, and what your personal preferences are. So when you filter out the search, like I was showing you guys on ImRecruitable, you can narrow down a search, and that could be 25 schools, that could be 50, that could be 120. It really depends on what you're looking to get out of it and how many schools fit that criteria. It's important to be open-minded though, so you also don't want to have too small of a list and too narrow of a list. Even though you may qualify, let's say you're targeting the Ivy Leagues, and there's only a small number of Ivy League schools out there. Even though you're targeting them, it has to still work out. The coach still has to have a roster spot. They still have to want to recruit you. You still have to get admitted. There's a lot that goes into it. So I recommend as many schools that could fit your criteria, and then narrowing that list down. And that could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 72. So it's just about having a big enough list and not trying to be too limited. Someone wrote here, I'm having trouble getting in contact with coaches. What more can we be doing? So if you're having trouble getting in contact with coaches, this is common. It's important to be aggressive, and it's very uncomfortable for student athletes sometimes to be that aggressive because you want to be polite. At the same time, you're a little nervous. You're trying to get on a team. You're really trying to hope that school recruits you or wants to recruit you. But there's a fine line between being aggressive and rude and being aggressive and going after what you want. So the type that we want is that alternative, which is being aggressive and trying to get what you want, which is interaction with the coach. So, there's nothing wrong with emailing the coach more than once if you haven't heard back, but you can be polite about it. Hey, coach, just rewriting you. I haven't got a reply yet. Would really appreciate it. Giving a phone call, leaving a message on their machine if you don't get a hold of them, saying, hey, coach, I sent you an email, really wanted to talk to you, or really want to get an answer from you if this is interest. Texting, finding them on social, finding their team. There's ways you can get a hold of them. And if you do that, you will get a hold of them. And you'll get an answer at least. And that's really what you're looking for. You're just trying to understand whether you're a fit for them or not. And provided that you have a good, complete profile and you're able to easily allow them to evaluate you, you'll get that answer pretty quickly. Another way of getting exposure to coaches is attending camps and showcases, combines. People have different names for them now, but just getting out there in front of a lot of coaches. And even if they're not all the coaches that you're particularly targeting, the schools, it's important to get your name out there. Coaches talk. It's a small community in every sport. So people might see you, and, coaches can be very helpful. One coach might see you and say, you're not really a prospect for my team, but I know a couple coaches that would like you. Let me, introduce you or pass on the information. You talk to coaches when you go to those events, and they help you understand how to get connected. And So the second part of this question, which I didn't read, is how do I know if I need more guidance from somebody? Well, that's kind of part of it is you're trying to navigate things, but then at the same time, if you're struggling with those areas, you're not sure what to say, how to say it, you want someone to coach you through it, then that's when you need a little bit more help. The next question here is, are recruiting trips very important? I think I talked about this in my presentation here. Yes, super important. I think that the thing you don't want to get into is you don't want to be so last minute that you don't have time to take trips. So make sure you stay ahead of it. Make sure you talk to the coaches, communicate to them that you want to make a visit, figure out whether that's going to be an unofficial or official visit. At the same time, there's nobody's stopping you from just going and visiting schools too, and like taking a vacation with the family and just driving around and checking out campuses, touring schools. People do that usually freshman, sophomore year, but they even do it junior year, and it's never too late. So when playing my sport, do prior results, stats weigh heavily into coach's decision for me to join their team? Yeah, this is a harsh reality. Not everybody's going to be the next LeBron James or the Tiger Woods or the Serena Williams, whatever you want to call it, players. And so there's a level for everyone. And so your results and statistics, they do matter. The rankings, the ratings, they're important. They weigh on potentially recruiting you, and depends on the type of school, because initially coaches are going to want to see results. Yes, it comes down at some point to seeing you play and seeing your talent and how much upside you have and the X factors and all that stuff. But that's only if you're within the range. If you're talking about stars, which are pretty much across all sports, you have 1 stars to 5 stars or blue chip players. I mean, if you're a 5-star, you're a 2-star and the schools recruits 5 stars, I mean, you haven't shown results in enough that you've been able to compete with 5-star athletes out there. You don't have those stats, you don't have those results. If you start getting those results, you'll probably start moving up the rankings or ratings. But even if you're not quite there, coaches will take a look at you. But you also have to understand, how far apart you are. And they weigh in very heavily to those coaches' decisions at that point, because they'll tell you, hey, you want to play on my team? Well, I have a team full of 5 stars. Show me you can beat a bunch of these 5 stars, or that you can play with them and get those results on a consistent basis. If you can, then there's an opportunity for you. All right, I'm going to see if there's another question here. How will your assessment call help my daughter? Okay. So as I was saying, look, our assessment call is going to ask you a series of questions to understand where you're at in the process, also what needs to be done. Our experts have been doing this for a long time, and they're going to figure out where you're at, what you need to do. They're going to get a better understanding about what you're looking for, and then recommend you on how you should navigate your process moving forward. And so that is very valuable information, because it's coming from somebody who's getting to know you and can look at all the areas that you're working on. They can listen to your story and point you in the right direction. At the same time, as I mentioned, you are going to get a verified stamp of approval, which helps you in the network and gets you the maximum exposure to the coaches. So there's really no harm in doing one. I just think it's added information. And if you choose that you need more help, you want to get the tools, which I think, like I said, is very, very important to navigate it. It's going to be very helpful for you. Let me see if there's one more question. To apply now. I think some of them are similar questions, so I think that's good for now. I'm going to look in the chat one more time. I don't see any questions, but that's okay. I know a lot of you guys might have questions after. That's when you can ask some of those questions on the scout call or assessment calls. So you can talk to somebody about your specific situation. So I'm just going to throw it back to John now to conclude everything. But I want to appreciate everybody for your time. Hope you guys learned something. And I'll just end my side off by saying the time is now. Get started. Don't procrastinate it. This is a journey and it takes time. So you want to, you're only going to do this one time. So you want to make sure that you don't waste any more of your time, but you also make sure that you get the results that you want and get to the best school.
All right. Again, like Tarek said, thank you all for attending the webinar. We hope it was an informative session. As Tarek mentioned as well, we will be following up with you to help gain access to ImRecruitable, as well as schedule your free assessment calls and help you through your recruiting journey. Tarek also mentioned you can book those assessment calls through your profile. Even if you have time now, we added the link in the chat here. You can just click on the link and you can easily book an assessment call with one of our recruiting specialists, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you everyone for joining, and have yourself a great night. Thank you.